What are the main differences between English and French DNA, and how different are they? Now, when it comes to the ancient DNA of both countries, we know they are comprised of the same three deep ancient sources: Western hunter-gatherers, early European farmers from around Anatolia, and then steppe ancestry during the Bronze Age. We also know that there was a migration into ancient England between 1000 and 875 BC, of a people who were genetically most similar to ancient individuals from France. So when it comes to the ancient DNA of England and France, they're very similar in general. Yet it was later events that we see real genetic differences emerge. Now, one of the key differences between the two is the influence of the Vikings, which was greater on England than France overall. In England, Scandinavian ancestry is strongest in areas historically associated with Viking settlement, such as parts of the former Danelaw. These signals are visible in both autosomal DNA and Y-chromosome lineages, such as I1. France also experienced Viking activity, particularly in Normandy, which was settled by Norse groups in the 10th century, with Rollo becoming the first ruler of Normandy. But genetically, the impact appears more diluted and less visible than in England. This is partly because the Norse settlers in Normandy quickly mixed with the local populations. As a result, Viking ancestry is more regionally pronounced and easier to detect in England, while in France it is more subtle and blended into the broader population. Now, the second key difference between English and French DNA is the level of Southern European or Mediterranean ancestry in the populations. Now, in southern France, particularly around the Mediterranean, we see greater affinity with Southern European populations, such as those in Italy and Iberia. This reflects both ancient and historical connections, including trade, migration, and shared Roman-era networks. Even beyond the Mediterranean coast, France shows internal clines that reflect a gradient, with Northern European-like ancestry higher in the north, and the south having more of a Southern European influence. This creates a level of genetic diversity within France that is greater than in England, something we'll look at shortly. Now, while Roman Britain did involve some movement of people from across the Roman Empire, including from Southern Europe, numerous ancient DNA studies show that this had a very limited genetic impact on the population as a whole, and this is something I have made a separate video on. Now, one of the greatest DNA differences between England and France lies in the scale and the impact of Germanic migrations after the fall of the Roman Empire. Both lands experienced these Germanic migrations, from the Anglo-Saxons in England to groups like the Franks, the Burgundians and the Visigoths in the land we call France today, thanks to the Franks. But do English or French people have more Germanic DNA today? Well, quickly before we look at this, I wanted to mention a great website I've been using called Shortform. Now, if your life is anything like mine, it can be difficult to find enough time in the day to learn everything you want to learn, but Shortform helps with this. It produces super high quality guides and analysis of over 10,000 non-fiction books, from one-page summaries to full book guides. They have a wide range of amazing books, from Meditations by Marcus Aurelius to Atomic Habits by James Clear. They also have another one of my favourite books called The Psychology of Money, which is excellent if you haven't read it. All guides also have an audio feature as well if you prefer to listen to books, and they even do podcast summaries. To learn more, please go to my affiliate link at shortform.com/Celtic. I'll put a link in the description below as well. You'll get a 5-day free trial and 25% off the annual subscription plan using that link, which is great. So check out Shortform, and now on with the video. Now, when it comes to the level of Germanic DNA in England versus France, it is higher in England overall. Ancient DNA studies suggest that present-day English populations can derive roughly between 10 and 40% of their ancestry from the Anglo-Saxons. This is not uniform across the country, however. Western England does show less of this ancestry in general and more of an Atlantic Celtic profile, but in parts of Eastern England, the signal is substantial. The name England literally means the land of the Angles. France, by contrast, experienced Germanic migrations as well, but their genetic impact appears to be much more limited at the population level. Even though the name France comes from the Franks, Germanic peoples did not replace or heavily transform the underlying Gallo-Roman population. Instead, their influence was more political and cultural than demographic. As a result, while northern France does show some northern European affinity, it lacks the broader Germanic signal seen in England. So in simple terms, England was more heavily reshaped by Germanic migrations, while France largely absorbed them. But what about other factors? Well, another key difference between the two countries is the level of internal genetic variation. Now, England shows a clear regional pattern, particularly an east to west divide driven by varying levels of Germanic-like ancestry, which generally peak in the east in places like East Anglia. Overall, however, England is still relatively cohesive comparatively. France, on the other hand, is more internally diverse, shaped by geography, historical regions, and barriers such as rivers. The Loire River is an especially important natural barrier that has served as a political and cultural border between historical kingdoms. When the entire country is considered, the variation becomes even more pronounced, with distinct Atlantic, continental, and Mediterranean zones. Brittany and France, for instance, has much more of Atlantic Celtic genetic profile, with markers like R1b-L21 high here, as you can see in this map. This partly reflects documented migrations from Britain to Armorica, or Brittany, during the early medieval period. In general then, France has more genetic variation than England, which in part is driven by geography of course, with England cut off by the Channel, while France is very much obviously a continental European power. But how has all this influenced the haplogroups in both countries? Well, if you look at this table, you can see the main Y-DNA haplogroups in England and France. As you can see, R1b is the most common marker, but the different branches of R1b speak to different historical influences. R1b-L21 is higher in England, especially in the west, and is associated more with Atlantic Celtic ancestry. It is elevated in Brittany and France as well though, as you can see, showing this affinity across the Channel like we discussed earlier. Now U106 is higher in England overall, reflecting this Germanic ancestry largely through the Anglo-Saxons, although there is some crossover with Danish Vikings, something I have made a previous video on. Now R1b U152 on the other hand is higher in France. This is a marker sometimes known as the Italo-Alpine branch, given that it is also high in parts of Switzerland and northern Italy. We also know that this subclad was common in ancient Gaul, the home of Celtic civilization in the ancient world. DF27 is also higher in France, especially in the southwest, a subclad that peaks in Iberia in general, and is very high in the Basque Country. We can also see that I1 is more common in England, reflecting mainly a stronger Viking signal. Other markers like E1b1b, Ji2 and G2a are more notable in France, which are common in the eastern Mediterranean and North Africa. On the maternal side, we can see that both peoples are very similar. They are dominated by branches of H and U, such as U5. This reflects their shared ancient ancestry that forms the bedrock of Western European DNA. There is small variations in some other haplogroup rates, but in general, they are very similar as far as mitochondrial haplogroups. So, overall, while England and France share a broad Western European genetic signature, their DNA tells two distinct stories of migration, isolation, and conquest. England tends to show stronger North Sea Germanic and Scandinavian influence, while France shows more internal diversity and a greater Mediterranean pool. In effect, England represents a population that was more directly reshaped by specific migration events, while France represents a population that absorbed and blended multiple influences across regions. But how do you know if you actually have Viking DNA? Well, to find out, please click here. Thanks for watching, please subscribe and hit the bell, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and whether you have English or French ancestry, or a combination of the two. And also check out Shortform. I'll put a top link in the video description below, or go to shortform.com/Celtic. But yeah, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.